Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Dennis Stone, Director of the Center for Advocacy and Social Justice at the Jacksonville Urban League. And tonight, as part of our series of racial healing and reconciliation conversations, we have Dr. Gail Christopher with us. Dr. Christopher served as a vice president for the Kellogg Foundation, which started a nationwide program to focus on this topic. Putting in the term truth in the model. And some great results have come out of it, some interesting results. And Dr. Christopher really is known for this pioneering work and her work in holistic health and diversity concepts in the public sector. The ideas that she's looked at, I think were the emphasis behind, and certainly her passion behind, many areas within the foundation's programming. These include food, health, well-being, leadership, public policy, community engagement, and place-based funding in New Orleans and New Mexico. And in 2015, she received the Terrence Keenan Award for Grant Makers in Health. And she chaired the board of the Trust for America's Health for 2012 through 2022. And in 2019, became the senior scholar with George Mason University's Center for Advancement of Wellbeing. And Dr. Christopher also became executive director of the National Collaborative for Health Equity in November of 2019. So the NCHE is a national nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. Since 2020, she has served as director of the Transforming Public Health Data Commission, sponsored by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. So you can see she comes from some really strong organizations that, to use a phrase that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said to me once, she doesn't suffer fools. Although talking with her, the nicest person, you'll find out tonight. Anyway, with that, Dr. Christopher, please, you may begin your presentation.
Well, thank you so much for that very gracious and concise introduction. It is my honor to speak with you this evening, and I'm looking forward to engaging with you after I make a presentation. I'm looking forward to a good question and answer period. This work of healing from our nation's past and learning how to see ourselves in one another, and I'm an old Star Trek fan, so I'll say of jettisoning the false belief in a hierarchy of human value. This is the work that we must really complete in the 21st century. You know, it's been like a weight around our country for so many centuries, and it is time for us to, in some ways, grow up emotionally and spiritually to where we recognize our shared humanity, our interdependence, our need for one another, and the value that will emerge when we learn to truly see ourselves in one another. And that's the work of truth, racial healing, and transformation. So I'm going to share with you some of the critical components of this work, some of the lessons learned to date, and hopefully you'll experience the hopefulness and the inspiration that so many thousands of people around the country, tens of thousands at this point, are experiencing as they learn to come together across racial lines and gender and identity and discipline, they learn to come together to achieve common purpose, which is really what this work is about. I was privileged to be with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation for a little more than a decade and to lead much of the work that was described in the introduction. When Mr. Kellogg when he left his fortune to create a foundation independent of the company, his words were, "Do what you will with the money, as long as it helps children." He had a real soft spot in his heart for children, as most of us do. And if you really want to feel that softness, that passion, become a grandparent. I'm convinced that there is some aspect of our genetic expression that is turned on when we have grandchildren. It brings out a love in us, a warmth, a graciousness that we may never have experienced before. So I had the privilege of becoming a grandmother almost 6 years ago. And my daughter looks at me and she's just in awe. She said, "Mom, I think you might love your grandchild more than you do me." I tell her, no, it's not more, it's just different. But Mr. Kellogg was clear. And as we looked at the demographic shifts in this country, and we recognized that most of the children in this country at that point, which was well over 10 years ago and still today, most of the children in this country were diverse. They were children of color. And yet they were facing the greatest barriers to economic viability, to optimal education, and certainly to health and well-being. And so there's some structural dynamics in our society that if we don't address them, we are, as some folks would say, shooting ourselves in the foot, because our future depends on the level of equity and opportunity that we provide for future generations. So this is in our collective interest to do this work. If you as a community decide to join the many communities around the country that are rolling up their sleeves, as they say, and doing the work, you will be joining an expanding network across this country. And so I thought I'd start this by sharing with you a map that reflects to some degree the extent, the breadth, and the depth of the work that's going on across the United States. Nicole, could we have that first slide, please? So this map, it includes many of the places that are part of the expanding national work. I could start by saying that philanthropy funded 15 original local coalitions, one of which is Buffalo, New York, which I like to think of in some ways as an exemplar, because they've made such a difference in the local economy. They pulled together a business roundtable, and they call it the grass tops, in the sense that these were the people who could, if they supported the work, they could make decisions, they could move resources that would actually change the dynamic, the economic dynamic, in terms of opportunity and viability. But we have 14 other originally funded places that have been at this work in their communities, and they're expanding since 2017. We also have over 70 college campuses around the country that have actually established truth, racial healing, and transformation campus centers. And they are doing amazing work. The umbrella organization for the campus work is the American Association of Colleges and Universities. And you can visit their website and take a deeper dive into all the work that's happening on college campuses. We also have libraries that became a part of this work, and there were over 70 libraries originally in 2017, and that work continues to expand and they call it the Great Stories Club. and they provide opportunities for the young people in the communities to see themselves reflected in the books and the literature that they read. Over 200, I believe the last count was 250 jurisdictions, public health jurisdictions have declared racism as a public health crisis. We're working with them through the American Public Health Association and the de Beaumont Foundation. We also have an effort that is being led in the U.S. Congress by Congresswoman Barbara Lee and Senator Cory Booker. And, you know, it takes time to make change, but since 2017, we've garnered the support, co-sponsorship of a resolution to create a national Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Commission. We've garnered the support of well over 200 co-sponsors for that resolution. So I like to start with this to let you know, if you decide to become part of this effort, you are joining an expanding network of people who are doing the work. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many, many more. We at the National Collaborative for Health Equity, we support leaders who are doing the work. Right now we have over, we'll have 120 leaders that engage in an 18-month learning experience with us. So we add those to the map. And so as you can see, there is a movement. It is under the radar. It's not a topic that you're going to hear about on any of the major news networks on an ongoing basis. And we're okay with that because we don't want to get caught up in the polarization and the rhetoric. We really want to do the work at the community level. So you can take that slide down now. Thanks, Nicole. So what I thought I'd do also is, you know, walk you through the methodology, if you will. What is it that these campus centers and these colleges and these local jurisdictions are doing? And they are applying the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Framework and the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Process. Again, this was launched by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation in partnership with many local community groups and foundations and philanthropic organizations back in 2017. It has at its core 5 pillars. And these pillars reflect lessons learned over decades of how to do this work in a way that calls people in, not out, and that expands our circles of engagement. So if we could have the TRHT framework slide, that would be great, Nicole. It was clear to me after a lifetime of working to end racism, it was clear to me that despite all of our efforts and all of our progress, we had never really uprooted the fundamental belief. And you know, beliefs drive behaviors. Beliefs create organizations. And we have to be honest with ourselves. This country was founded, incubated, and in its early centuries dedicated itself to the proposition of a false hierarchy of human value. And so that belief has to be uprooted and eradicated and jettisoned, right? And in order to do that, we have to face the truth and we have to change the narrative about who we are as a human family. And so the first pillar of this work is what we call narrative change. And that's why it was so important that libraries be engaged and that universities be engaged. This is where, you know, we learn, and this is where our stories are amplified. And we also engage the media, local newspapers, local partnerships. Perhaps the local jurisdiction that has been most creative in their narrative change work is Dallas, Texas. And they brought together and worked for a year to get many diverse voices in that community to come together and tell a different story, a more authentic and inclusive story of the history of Dallas, Texas. Then after we work on narrative change and we engage in this more authentic telling of our stories, we then focus on what I call the heart of the work, which is racial healing. and relationship building. But what I mean by racial healing actually is a specific methodology, a circle methodology that we bring diverse people together in circle, and we very carefully co-facilitate sharing of authentic human stories, not about race and racism, but about what it means to have our basic human motivational needs addressed, what it means to experience the agency that comes with that process. And in this work, we actually help to expand our circles of engagement and build bridges of trust that are strong enough to carry the weight of the truth and the transformation that we will mutually agree upon. And so this work of bringing people together and listening and sharing and affirming and creating these experiences of authentic sharing. And these are not dialogues and they're not conversations. They're facilitated exchange of very human stories, lived experiences that open hearts and in many ways change minds or consciousness. I've captured the essence of how to do that piece of the work in a book called RX Racial Healing, which is available through the American Association of Colleges and Universities. So we do the narrative change, we do the racial healing work, and then we ask ourselves, well, if this idea of a hierarchy of human value is so false, and we know it is, science has told us that there's more diversity uh, within the so-called races than there is, between them. And so we really need to jettison that false notion. Genomic science, social science, psychology tells us that it doesn't apply. And yet some people are not aware that it is an antiquated concept. But we did have to ask, how did this lie live for so long? And how is it still structured within our society? And we recognize that primarily through some specific avenues. One is through separation, and we could list all the ways that we remain separated, which is why the circle process, which helps to overcome our entrenched separation, that's why that's such an integral part of the work. But everything from residential segregation to Native American reservations, so many things are designed to keep us apart. And so if we're going to bring us together, we have to understand that that was a deliberate strategy for keeping people apart. And then the other way that racial hierarchy has been maintained throughout its original phase and even now, it's through our legal systems and our legal policies, many of which were perpetrated by the federal government and certainly at the state level, and the Supreme Court has played a major role. Our immigration policies, for example, our actual policies enforcing racial hierarchy. And of course, our criminal justice system comes to mind. But the law has been a tool for maintaining racial hierarchy, and the law will have to be a tool for undoing that. We're very happy that the American Constitution Society is a strategic partner in this work, and we have attorneys general around the country engaged in overturning some of the antiquated opinions that reflected the racism of the past. And so it's exciting work, but it's an important part of the work of ending structural racism and moving toward justice. And then finally, we have to all acknowledge that this false idea of a hierarchy of human value, racism and other isms and associated isms, it fueled meteoric economic progress in this country. We would not be the country we are today had we not exploited this so many populations who were diverse. And so if we're going to end racism, we're going to have to face the economic challenges. If faced, and these wealth gaps closed, we're going to see a collective benefit, monetary benefit for our national economy in the tune of trillions of dollars. So those are the pillars of TRHT: narrative change, racial healing and relationship building, and then overcoming the structural manifestations of this entrenched ideology of a hierarchy of human values. So we have the structures of separation as it's built into our legal and legislative system, and also our economy. So the coalitions locally come together, they understand the framework, and they have teams that are working on each pillar, and they have a very specific process that they go through together, which I'll outline very briefly. And that is, and this is something that's unique about TRHT, our original design team and the local teams, they start with a vision for success. They answer the question, what will our county, our city, our town, our organization, what will it be like when we have succeeded in facing our racialized past, overcoming it? What will our children inherit, right? What will the quality of life be like? What will the new narrative be? What will the new relationships be? How will we know we've overcome the legacy of separation? How will we have institutionalized it through our legal systems? And what will the economic viability look like for all of us? And so they start with a clear vision of success. And that's different from much of our social justice and health equity work. We tend to be focused on the deficits, on the pathology, on the challenges. But we believe the transformational work requires beginning with a clear vision and expectation for success. So that's the first step in the process. The second step is, once you know where you're going, once you've established the North Star, then you can do a realistic assessment of, well, where are we now in relationship to that? And that helps you to create the roadmap for how you're going to get to that vision. So that landscape analysis is the second step, and it's usually data-driven, and we can be helpful with that at NCAG. We have some very creative data approaches that are asset-based. And then from the data analysis and the landscape analysis, we move into, well, who needs to be part of our coalition that has the authority to bring about the transformation that we seek? And that helps to expand the circle. And then we say, okay, these are the actions we're going to take as a coalition, that we're going to hold ourselves accountable. We're going to track our progress. And at the same time, the final fifth step is to consider, how are we going to sustain this work? How are we going to institutionalize it? Is it through our local partnership with the government? Is it through support of local foundations? Is it all of the above? And so that's the TRHT framework and process. And we would love it if your community decided to become part of this work as well. The other thing that I wanted to remind you of, which is we're inspired by someone who's recognized as one of the geniuses of the 20th century. We're inspired by Albert Einstein's reminder. And if you put that slide up, Nicole, I'd appreciate it. Albert Einstein reminds us that our work is to really move beyond our self-focus and connect in a very deep way and recognize our interrelatedness and interconnection to all of life, not just to humanity, but to all of life. And that is really what this work is about. It's done with a level of humility, a level of awe and wonder at the possibilities that exist for us once we get rid of the baggage that we're carrying, that allows us to only focus on our own interests rather than the interests of our collective selves. And as Dr. Martin Luther King reminds us, that really darkness can't drive out darkness, hate can't drive out hate, only love can do that. And we think of this work of TRHT as a form of what we call revolutionary love, that it is really calling upon our better angels and rising to our higher selves and coming together with humility and with the realization that this work does take time. I just finished a book that I highly recommend to anyone that's interested in social or racial justice and equity. The book is entitled The Slave's Cause, and it's the history of the abolition movement in this country and the over 100-year history. What makes it so unique is that it centers the role of the enslaved people and the people who bought their freedom, who fought for their freedom, who escaped and remained dedicated to the ending of enslavement. And it reminds us that this kind of progress is always interracial, cross-racial, multi-generational, and it is always comprehensive in its nature. And I really encourage people to read that book. It really is a wonderful source of inspiration and hope that we did it before. You know, we're still on the journey and we will continue to do it, but we have to do it together. So how's my time, Dennis? Did I talk for a half hour? I think that I did, and I would love to engage in a dialogue with all of you about the work, to answer very specific questions about the work.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I was on mute.
That's okay.
I thought you laid it out quite well, and we're excited to have you here. We approached Kellogg. It must have been in 2018, and I think you had just finished up some of your early work, and
Mhm.
we've been looking at it ever since, and it's just exciting to have you with us. So, and with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Okay.
Questions for Dr. Christopher? One of our
Or
guests,
comment or
one of
feedback.
our guests I wanted to recognize is Kimberly Allen, who is executive director of a group called 90 Forward, which focuses on this topic as well.
Okay.
And I also see that Andre Howell has joined us from I got him on the phone here, but um, uh, who is works in the multicultural field of restaurants. Is that right, Andre? You're on mute.
My apologies. Yes. I also a board member of the Urban League of Rhode Island here representing.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I'm happy.
Delighted to be a part. Dr. Christopher, I've heard you in the past. I do appreciate your being on. And Dennis, I've seen you before in some of these broadcasts. So again, great information. I'm looking forward to it.
All
Thank
right.
you. Questions for Dr. Christopher?
I wonder if you could say a little bit more about what was happening in Dallas that was promoting the communication.
I will. Dallas is an amazing effort, and it was originally part of a foundation. In the last year, it spun off and it has its own independent entity of 501c3. But they began by that visioning process that I described. They built a broad community coalition and they produced an amazing publication, which we can share a link to, that is the story, the sort of imagined history of Dallas. And they brought in the Native American perspective, the Mexican and other perspectives, the Latino perspective, and many of the stories that never were told, they put into this publication. And the process of creating that was a very unifying effort on the part of Dallas leadership. In the process, they partnered with local museums and the local theater district. And even in the last 3 years, when, there's been this move to ban access to certain truths, the book banning, this local theater district decided that they would do an annual banned books festival. And they commissioned local playwrights to read one of the books that has been, in quotes, banned, and then to write one-act plays that carry the themes of those books. And then they do talkback sessions with these live audiences, So they are definitely, reaching the public, engaging the public, and telling stories and engaging young people in creating stories and plays that carry the themes. It's quite impressive. It's quite powerful. And we certainly can put you in touch with the folks in Dallas. They also decided to develop a fellowship where they brought together leaders of local nonprofits. And those nonprofits would go through, I think, a year-long immersion into the principles, the philosophy, the work of TRHT. And then they became a granting entity, the Dallas TRHT. And if the groups that went through their fellowship decide they're going to take on a new effort, the Dallas TRHT would subgrant $10,000 to help support their work so that they could keep it ongoing. So there's just many creative ways that they have built a base. As a result of their work, they're the only place in Texas that has an equity leader positioned in the public education system. They have a new position that was created with the local city government. So it's a lot of success on their part, but it has come from this building this public will and this strong community coalition.
Well,
Thanks for the question, William.
I would say if they can accomplish that in Dallas, that certainly means it could be done a lot of other places.
This is true. Some real heartfelt philanthropic leadership was going on there. We were honored to be a part of it, for sure. Other questions or comments or reactions?
Dr. Christopher, thank you so much for your time and presentation today. It's been really informative. And thanks, Dennis, for putting this together for sure. The question I typed in the chat and William asking about Dallas sort of fuels this, especially considering the time we're in now where the pendulum is swinging in sort of the opposite direction of when, George Floyd was murdered in particular, and folks are sort of retreating from the intimate conversations and the, wanting to dive into some of the historical racial inequities in order to sort of think through the opportunities of the future, and in some regards are requesting that we all just sort of not even lead with that or use that language, and in fact we focus only or at least on the front end of this sort of opportunity. And I'm sort of left feeling like that might be a false choice. I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Thank you so much for the question. I get it a lot, in these times, which is one reason why I so recommend that book, The Slave's Cause, right? Because it really does remind us of how much work it takes, how there are always factions that resist the work. I remember, I think it was in 2016, a lot of the young leaders mobilized to say, we're the resistance, right? The progressives said, we're the resistance. And I would say to them, no, that's the resistance, okay? Now, some people say it's backlash. My daughter, a leader in her own right, she thinks that's too mild a term, that it's not backlash. It's truly concerted, organized attempts to sabotage and to stop the work. And so, but if you take the long view, you recognize, over 25 million people marched for racial justice at the brutal murder of George Floyd, right? That has never happened before in the history of this country. And so that there might be a reaction to that, it was almost predictable and should have been predicted and planned for. I believe it gets morphed into so we perceive it as stronger than it truly is because of our media landscape today. And we have, this personalized social media capacity to amplify and exaggerate, one way of thinking. But in truth, and that's why I start with the map, the progress continues and people continue to move forward. All of the major psychological, psychiatric, medical associations, pediatricians, the whole field of medicine is still very much on the course. Public health is on the course of racial equity. Now, there have been, as my daughter says, there are some strategic efforts to sabotage that, but people are resisting that in the sense of they're succeeding in spite of that. Some of the librarians who were fired based on these laws they've created have sued and gotten their jobs back, right? And so it is always a process of a lot of progress and then some attempts to reverse that progress. But the larger majority, we do a poll every year at NCHE. We call it the Heart of America survey. And we ask questions, not that will polarize us, but we ask questions that have to do with what people truly want for their children and for the future of their country. And we found that over 80% of the country, they want this history of our racialized past. They want it to be taught. They want to overcome our racism and come together. They want a leader that will unite us. And if you look at the outcomes of the popular vote in the elections, that is evidenced as well. So I hear you, and I understand that if we listen to the media, we could believe that things are reversing. But not really. The majority, the collective consciousness is still moving forward. But, change doesn't come without reactions to it. Is that a helpful response?
Very much so. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And that is why I think, we've got to do the hard work. We've got to do the work of eliminating the permission, eliminating the false ideology and the false belief system. And that's how this work is different.
So we were talking, I think, before we started the presentation about Buffalo.
Uh-huh.
And I remember speaking to one of the leaders up there about the process. And I was left with the impression that actually the private sector was a big mover, that the CEOs of the companies up there had a lot to do with the success of their program.
Yes. In fact, the leader there I think it was the Community Foundation of Greater Buffalo, she started with what she called their business roundtable. And she brought in corporate leaders, and they became the nucleus, if you will, of the broader community effort. And that was very powerful for them because they could drive economic change and they could show that the work was in the economic interest of the city of Buffalo. And they were able to achieve billions in terms of growth, economic growth. But they also were very data-driven. They made a clear business case for the work, and they were able to track their success over time. Buffalo, and they're very generous and very gracious with their methodology in terms of being willing to share with other jurisdictions. Buffalo is the only one of the local efforts that led with the corporate sector or the business sector. Others, focused more on either public health or the nonprofit sector or the philanthropic sector. But Buffalo did bring their business leaders in from the beginning, and I think it made they raised so much money to keep the work alive. You may remember if I went through the 5 steps, that 5th step is about sustainability. So having the business sector at the table helped to assure that possibility for sustainability. I believe Charleston, South Carolina has taken a similar approach.
Yes, but what was that line to the vice president? Somebody said to him, "Well, you're not John Kennedy." Well, Charleston is not Buffalo.
This is true. This is absolutely true. That is
They've come a long way. I worked in Charleston for several
okay.
years.
Okay.
Helped start a law school there, and they've come a long way. But and in fact, I'm glad you brought it up because I think they would be a good partner
Okay.
going forward.
Given your demographics and
Yeah.
your being in the South, absolutely. And region is important, Part of my vision as we go forward would be to have regional coalitions in the sense of giving folks an opportunity to learn from each other within regions, right? Because America is united sort of, but we also have our regional nuances. Let's just put it that way, So yeah.
So I had another question to shift the dialogue a little bit.
Okay.
How did you, I mean, it's easy enough to figure out how you might have gotten into this, but what's your story? What put you into the stream and kept you floating down the river
All right.
Delta?
All right. Well, that's a good question, and I will answer it. At a very young age, in my early 20s, I married and gave birth to my first child. And like so many women of color, I experienced what I didn't know then was almost an epidemic for Black women, which was the premature death of my child. She died in infancy, and it was so shocking and upsetting, and all those things that come with grief. At that point, I dedicated my life to working with as I became a licensed clinician in the space of holistic health and medicine. I worked with women to help them have healthy babies and to do everything that could be done to assure that they had healthy outcomes. And in that work, I learned that it was the stress really of living in a society that didn't value us, no matter how educated we were, right? And so that was sort of the launching experience, if you will. What I didn't learn until a good 20 years into this work was that the double whammy of racism had come into play in her birth and death, in the sense that she was born with a congenital heart defect, and she was one would call a blue baby. And but she was Black, right? And so they missed her congenital heart defect, if you can imagine that. And so it was not until she was 6 weeks of age that I was told, they diagnosed it at her 6-week checkup. But even at that point, they told me to take her home, and that, maybe they could do open heart surgery when she was 5 years old, knowing full well that she wouldn't live to be 5 years old. But the irony, the bitter pill was that the surgery that could have saved her life possibly had been invented 20 years before she was born. And it was invented by an African-American man. And that surgery has really ushered in the world of cardiology and cardiac surgery as we know it today. So that's part of my story, in the sense that, I lived with the injustice of racism, and have committed, now I went on, I've been blessed. I went on to have two wonderful children who are very much adults now and very successful. But those are the types of experiences that transform our lives. So that's part of my story.
Yeah, well, it's probably a little comfort, but we in Jacksonville are working very hard on that problem. We have some great people here working on it.
Mhm.
In fact, we have a program that was funded for exactly that problem. Um, the hope is to focus on 1,000 Black mothers,
Mhm.
um, and it's been somewhat difficult actually to complete, but we're learning a lot. So
That's really good news. We do have some leadership from the federal level on that. We also have, I was blessed in my time at the W.K. Kellogg Foundation to really prioritize our work on infant mortality prevention and optimizing birth outcomes. And we were able to work with the CDC and there's been a lot of progress, not enough, because ultimately, this notion of racial hierarchy, it plays out. It plays out in the clinical settings. It plays out in the prenatal, opportunities and exposures. But there's a lot of work going on in this country right now, and I'm encouraged by it. So thank you for sharing that.
other questions for Dr. Christopher?
Dr. Christopher, my name's Jerry Fernandez. I work with Andre Howell, who was here representing the Rhode Island Urban League, and we're in a restaurant hospitality space.
Okay.
I'm curious to know what other foundations and what other companies have demonstrated some leadership in supporting this kind of work. When you talk about infant mortality and the death of Black women,
Yeah.
I'm in an industry where 55% of our workforce are women, and a significant portion of that, almost 40% of that, in some sectors, are women of color.
Yeah.
With all these legislative maneuvers that are limiting women's access to all sorts of health care, disproportionately Black and brown women are being impacted. And so I'm interested in always knowing who the companies are that are leading, who can we point to and say, let's do what they're doing. How do we direct our corporate folks to do some of what you saw happen in Buffalo? So who are the leaders? Who should we be following?
That is a powerful question. Thank you for it. I'm more aware of the philanthropic leadership in this space than I am the corporate, although there is, many of the corporations do have philanthropic arms, right? But one of the foundations that has recently made a clear commitment to health equity, and they do have a strong maternal and infant health equity effort that they're funding, is the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And certainly they are the largest health philanthropy in the country. There is an organization called Grant Makers in Health, which is the largest health affinity group where all the different foundations that care about health, local and national, they are part of that. I served on that board for a number of years. In terms of corporate leadership in this space, I'm caught up a little short here.
That's probably because we're not doing enough.
Yeah, it is true. I was trying to think of, and I'm hard pressed to because so much of the corporate work right now with all of this noise about DEI, but let me explore that question and send an answer back to Dennis that he can share with you. We'll ask our team to do a little work on that, and we will look for who are the corporations that are exemplars in this space right now? I'm
Thank
sorry, I can't name a few. I don't want to misrepresent, you know.
Yeah, but I appreciate it because we know that there's a great need. I have had personal experiences with my own son who needs a kidney and was not diagnosed, was not informed of him having a creatinine level that was way. No one ever asked were there any kidney issues in our family, because there were, and we just went along until he comes to find out that he has end stage
Oh,
renal failure and needs a kidney. And so at 40, his life is changed in a way that was really not necessary. These things were preventable,
that's
and
true.
because we have a platform within our industry, I'm interested in pushing some of the narrative to the space of we have to care for our employees,
Good
and
for you.
that means not just tell them how to sell more French fries or more chicken wings. That's good too. We need that. We want to see more people of color who are owners and operators of food service and hotel. But the health issue is something we're dealing with every single day.
Yeah,
And I believe there's an opportunity for us to help bring some new education to that space. And
yeah.
if one restaurant company gets it, it'll be easy for us to hopefully replicate it with other companies. So I'll be very interested in on what you find out.
Well, I will say that I did some work with McDonald's Corporation,
Yeah, we know them well.
and they embraced the idea of racial healing and TRHT. It was the Chicago office that called us to do some work. So that is one, and during COVID, right? And so much of the employment sector today is the service
Yeah,
industries, right?
that's where our people are. Right.
Yep, yep. So, and another potential ally in this, although it may present some cognitive dissonance, but the unions seem to be in a moment of strength. And
Yeah.
they may be an interesting partner in this in terms of the well-being and of employees potentially, for sure.
Well, that's something that I personally am exploring. Not everybody is a big supporter of that because
Right, right.
you said cognitive dissonance is
I
a
was
little.
trying to be diplomatic.
Well, you were great. Thank you so much for
You're welcome. Thank you for
sharing.
that.
We look forward to
Yeah.
seeing more about TRHD.
Okay, all right.
Other questions?
Um, this is Lorraine Dennis. I have a question for our speaker tonight, and thank you so much for this presentation. I'm a Kenyan American, and my question is, how do we engage folks of color who are coming to the United States in large numbers in this work?
Mhm. Well, actually, part of our national coalition does involve groups that are working on the immigration issues, the asylum seekers, the refugees, and the broader community of people of color. Um, it is the same way that we engage, across the board. We do it by inviting them into the process, by explaining the process, and by experiencing the racial healing circles. And I would think that because it creates a sense of belonging and connection, and it also offers an honesty about the history of the country. I would think that it would be even more viable with newcomers to the country to engage them in a positive sense or coalition that is affirming their humanity from the beginning, right? And also being honest about the history and the journey before us. So it's always about an invitation. And if you decide to form a coalition in your town or city, and bring in the various groups that are working closely with the immigrant community, Chicago is kind of really out front on that. Because, we've had, and less so, we don't have a TRHT in New York City. I wish we did. But Chicago is one of those cities that has a lot of folks coming in, and they're working hard on building those bridges of trust. And, there's so much racism within and between all races. It's not a binary black-white conversation. We really do have to dig down and overcome our biases and our assumptions that are there. They infiltrate all within certain races and across races. So I really do appreciate the question.
I appreciate that answer. But how do we integrate, like when you look at the framework that's currently in place, a lot of folks coming from other countries have yet to process the trauma associated with their whoever their
right
their identities from colonial countries. So now you have this other identity crisis that is America.
Yep. Well, and I would encourage you to definitely read my book, RX Racial Healing. And the way the process is designed, it is designed to create a safe, I don't like that word because it implies there's harm, but it creates a space of belonging, a place of grace, and the focus is on meeting basic human emotional needs for affirmation, for a sense of belonging, for in-depth connection to other human beings. The concept of trauma has become profitable, and yet all of us exist today. Most of us have overcome unbelievable experiences in our past and are demonstrating agency and resilience in ways we are so much more than our traumas, right? And so we've designed the circle experience to invite people in to connect in ways that help to transcend the false divisions, to acknowledge the historic denial of humanity, whether it was through colonialism or through, its form in any country, and to unite with others so that we can move forward to affirm our equal value as human beings. So in that sense, that's why we call it RX, or prescription racial healing. There's a certain therapeutic but not deficit-focused dynamic that's involved in calling people into the circles. We do offer workshops to help prepare a cadre of facilitators who could do the work so that we can make sure you all know when the next workshop is happening. But we think the process, and it's not just limited to racial identities. We have the gender issues, we have the religious issues, but all of those identities, they meet at the crux of our humanity, and that's what we're really focusing on. And it's not color blindness, it is affirmation and valuing our identities, but recognizing our interdependence. So I appreciate the nuance of your question, and I certainly encourage you to get involved in the work. I think you might find it helpful.
We have been using restorative justice principles for circles.
Uh-huh.
Well, it was we helped get started a Center for Children's Rights.
Oh yeah, uh-huh. I've heard about that work.
Yeah. Director there brought that, Betsy Dobbins brought that to the center, and now they're actually a partner with us in law enforcement engagement circles.
Yep, I heard about that recently. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's been going really well.
Yeah.
And
the circle is a basic human concept, right? From most indigenous cultures use circles.
well, we're very close to, I think, let's see, we had one other question from Mr. Howell, I think, what a good source of tracking data out of Buffalo. And I sent them a note about the report that they published.
Great.
And so I think that would answer that question.
Yep.
And I think that's it for this evening.
Well, it's certainly been an honor and a privilege to be with all of you. The questions were always helpful. You know, when this is where the rubber meets the road is when we get to interact with folks for real and respond to heartfelt questions. So I grow each time I have the opportunity to engage with communities. And I really hope that you all will decide to do this work. I think it needs to be done in Florida.
We've decided and we're working, but we hope your visit will bring us into our second stage,
Okay.
moving faster and more broadly with the ideas. So thank you so much. On behalf of the Jacksonville Urban League, I want to thank you. I want to thank our guests. You've had some of the movers and shakers in the community here. Lorraine Husband is had a major part of Feeding Northeast Florida. Kimberly Allen, I mentioned 9 Forward. Janet Burke is works in minority aids coordination, and Julia Henry Wilson is head of our Center for Education, Career Services, and Workforce Development. And I think Mr. Howell and Mr. Fernandez introduced themselves. And also William Malone, he's been a major driver of our speaker series. So thank all of you, and also Nicole Fry for the work you're doing with Dr. Christopher.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening, and we have a Mother's Day weekend coming up soon. So wishing you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you so
Take
much.
care. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.